Knox, Sneakers, what a lightning in a bottle sort of song. I remember hearing it for the first time when they were kind of posting about it on TikTok and Instagram and everything. And I remember hearing it and just thinking, man, I love this. It's so energetic, so catchy. Its approach is unique, but still familiar enough that it lands within the landscape of what's popular right now. It just felt really unique, something that I really wanted to be part of. And funny enough, the management at the time, I was working on a couple other records with people who were kind of in the Knox camp, and they reached out to me and said, hey, we have this song. We really need to get it out soon. Are you interested in mixing it and getting it over the finish line? And I said, absolutely. And from there, things went pretty quick. I think I got the song, got the files, had a mix back within a day or so. We did a quick little FaceTime call or two, tweaked it a bit, and it was out that same week, really. And I guess, the rest from there is history. It kind of had its life of its own. So thought it'd be fun to just sit down, open up the session, take a look, maybe talk about some things that I did, some things I didn't do, and yeah, go from there. All right, so here we are in the session. The first thing you'll notice, if you look at, kind of over here where my plugins are, there's not a lot going on. There's a decent amount of tracks, but as far as processing goes, there's not a lot. Cam Becker, who produced this, is just an incredible producer. Doesn't leave a lot of room for things that need done. It came to me sounding like a finished record already. And a lot of the stuff that, Knox is putting out now, Cam, handles all that. They move quick, they like what it sounds like, and they put it out, and I love that workflow. So you'll definitely notice that a lot of what I'm doing in this is just refining. It's really just kind of bringing things over the finish line, creating a little more energy, a little more depth, a little more character, and just highlighting what's already there and what's already great about the song. So starting with the drums, all of these drums here are the live drums. Let's just solo those quick. And those are feeding this bus right here, my drum bus, real drums. They sound great. I mean, they're programmed, but as far as drums in this kind of genre, they sound pretty solid. I'm doing a little bit of processing kind of overall on things, just a little bit of EQ, a little compression, kind of kick, kind of different things. I do like clipping just to get that loudness. I find that it makes things later downstream not have to work as hard if I kind of clip just a little bit here and there. What else? So the drum bus, I really like the SSL comp on drum bus for this style of song. Things where I want the drums to kind of sit back and be more slappy and attacky than kind of big, loud kind of like body drums. And you'll see I'll bypass this for you here. Changes the tone a bit, brings things forward more. I really like that. This is really great EQ as well from Waves. It's like the Abbey Road stuff is really great. Just a little bit of EQ on this, kind of boosting some top, sucking out a little bit of stuff that I don't like, doing a little bit of filtering at 40 hertz. You'll see it kind of just tone shapes a little bit. Pretty subtle, but again, something that just kind of tone shapes. Same thing here, Pro Q. Just felt like it needed a little more of that top end crack type thing. Keeping on, this is some percussion stuff. There's some fake drums layered in. The only real process I'm doing on this is I think the claps, which happened back here. I'm bussing those and then just compressing a little bit. Just to, again, bring it forward, a little more energy. It's kind of fun. That's it for the drums, really. Other than that, I do have a drum crush going on, which is, parallel style stuff. That's just an 1176 doing its thing. I have that blended in. I'll bypass it. You can take a listen here. All the drums soloed. Again, just bringing things forward, keeping it in your face, keeping the energy alive. little bit more processing on like my overall drum bus, API 2500, just a little bit of saturation, and then I like to do a little bit of limiting here. I mean, it says 5 dB, but I'm sure it's probably not doing that. Again, just less I have to work later downstream, if I could kind of control things there. Moving on, we have some effects and stuff. Not doing anything to those transitional effects. Bass guitar, again, just some, fairly basic EQ, fairly basic compression. You'll see these are duplicate tracks. I like to duplicate the track and do any parallel stuff that way. Just makes kind of saving all the busing and routing later downstream to be a little nicer. So you'll see this is like what I'm trying to get just out of the top end of the bass. This is the original bass. Same thing with like the sub here. There's some sub down there. Feels great, but you'll hear when I add in my parallel stuff, it just cuts through the speakers a little more. Just makes small speakers speak, makes the whole song feel a little larger as well. Again, that's it for bass. I do have a parallel on bass as well. Now that I look at it, this one maybe I think's a little. I was really wanting more of the attack out of the bass, so I think I did something that was enhancing the transient on this one. I'm kind of slapping it with the SSL pretty hard, and then I'm filtering just all the bottom, so all I'm getting is that transient off the top. And that's really good at keeping the energy alive, kind of in a song like this where everything's kind of pressed against the glass and fairly loud. Gives you that slap bass thing. Acoustic guitars kind of go throughout. They're pretty jangly. I think I'm just like boosting some top end. Yep. A little more top end. Really like this EQ, the EV2 from Waves. SSL style thing. Does that SSL thing really well. Just boosting that, top end thing. Again, just to get them to cut, kind of keep the energy going. That brings us to electric guitars. These are the kind of main ones that everybody knows. That's kind of the famous. Again, little tone shape and EQ. I mean, this is like 2-3 dB max. Going to this bus. That's probably just taking out some room for the vocal. CLA3A, just controlling it. It's just holding it in place so the vocal can live, a little closer to us. Those are the verse guitars. All these big guitars down here for the chorus are getting bussed together as well. Just some general tone shaping EQ kind of individually to balance them out, and then on the main bus itself, I'm doing this, which I really like this VSM3 on guitars. It lets you kind of dial in the saturation really nicely, bring out the aggression in the places where you want it without it. Just comes forward a fair amount. Again, doing a little notching, a little just tone shaping thing. SSL EQ, boosting a decent amount of low end. The guitars felt pretty thin. Even listening back now, I probably would have made them a little thicker now in today's day and age. Again, tone shape thing. Feels like I'm making room for the vocal probably. Saturn 2, probably not using, I'm using just the middle band. Really want to just saturate that area where we hear loudness, just to give us a little more perceived level overall. That's pretty much it for guitars. On all my buses, you'll see that I have a virtual mix rack, and that's just kind of doing the console thing, which is, I can kind of choose between which of these I like, and then drive it as much as I want. And if you were to bypass all of those across the whole session, you'd probably hear a little bit of a tone shift. Again, it's kind of helping with just a little extra saturation, a little loudness, doing the console driven approach thing, which is kind of always fun. There's some synth stuff. I won't go too far into any of this because I think it's generally just some EQ stuff I'm doing. Yeah, again, really simple EQ moves. I'm just trying to get as much out of that area down below as I can for some, just headroom, and then kind of gaining some level on some things. This allows me to pull the fader down a little bit while boosting, some top end to give me some perceived level on it. That's all the synths. That's, we're going to get into vocals now, but that's kind of the whole song. It's fairly simple. There's definitely some guitar layers, and I'm sure there's a lot more that, went into this whole production that was already kind of bust and committed before it even got to me, which is great. I don't need to see exactly how every sound was made and have complete control. Which all these black tracks, grayed out tracks you see as well, are like the overall stems. So these gray tracks that you're seeing here are muted in the session, but it's basically a sum of all these. And the producer gives that to me just because their DAW separates it out that way, but it's also just nice to reference maybe any processing that they had done on their, subgroups as well. So getting in the vocals, again, I don't think I'm doing a whole lot. You could see the vocal came to me pretty compressed already. Not a ton of room for me to have to heavy lift here, so if we solo out. T-shirt, I could, but I gotta fuck with me first. Girl, you're hotter than a fever. So I've got Soothe, kind of digging out some of that harsh upper mid thing. EQ. T-shirt, okay. I could, but I gotta fuck with me first. Some dynamic stuff. I've been trying to do less and less dynamic EQ on Pro Q3, and just finding maybe more creative ways to do it in recent years. So this is maybe a little bit of an old thing, but just sucking out some of the bottom. You could see controlling a few things, not really boosting, doing anything quite yet. Again, T-shirt, I could, but I gotta fuck. Just controlling that thing that sometimes happens when the vocal is improperly compressed or not compressed in a way. I'm kind of evening some of that out, and then I think I'm recompressing here a bit. T-shirt, I could, but I gotta fuck with me first. Girl, you're hotter than. It doesn't even look like I'm touching that, so that might just be there for tone, maybe a bit of level, a little de-essing. T-shirt, I could, but I gotta fuck with me first. Girl, you're hotter than a fever. Not even touching that compressor either. So again, I'll take my processing off, but it looks like I'm not doing a whole lot here. A little bit of boosting here. Now here's where my top end comes back. A little bit of saturation, true iron. This one's pretty subtle usually, but I do enjoy it. And then I'm doing that Saturn II thing again, where I'm just soloing out the band that I really want to showcase and have live at the very forefront of the mix, and just saturating that independently from other things. That just gives me control over making sure that thing is what's really in the front, and keeping kind of, intelligibility of the vocal. So if we did it without any of my processing, let's see what that sounds like. T-shirt, I could, but I gotta fuck with me first. Girl, you're hotter than a fever, but it's close. Again, we're not moving mountains here. We're just refining the edges. We're making sure it sounds just the way that they were excited about it in the room, making sure that's going to translate everywhere else. I do have a vocal crush bus, which is parallel going, and you can see I have that automated, so I take that down in the verses sometimes because I don't really need as much energy, and then the chorus, to get over kind of the wall of sound, I'll automate it back up. And that's just, again, 76, a little bit of decapitator, and then just filtering out what I don't love or don't need more of, essentially. So without that. T-shirt, I could, but I gotta fuck with me first. Gaining some volume, gaining some level. And then my overall, this is kind of my catch-all on the lead. Have a little bit of tone shaping EQ. T-shirt, I could. Not even touching that either. A little bit of saturation. I like this. Adds a little bit of low end back in. A little bit of weight for a vocal that maybe feels a little thin. I do like that. And then trim corrects for little radiator not having a trim knob. And then this is just probably a revision that I had done. Just taking down another half dB off the vocal. And that's a lot of it, to be honest. There's some BGVs, which, as you could tell, I'm doing not much at all on. There's a double that I'm adding a little bit of delay color, maybe. A lot of these EQs are flat. There's some special effects type things back here. The vocal chop. Again, very broad stroke EQs, not a ton going on. These are all my effects, different things I'm kind of throwing here and there. Again, nothing incredibly crazy. And then I could go through my mix bus quick, but aside from that, that's the magic of this mix, is that it came from the producer feeling just incredibly great, feeling like a finished record, and I'm here for the peace of mind of just making sure that it really translates and works well. Mix bus, you could see I have virtual tape machine. This is the one I use. You know, a lot of people like the OAD stuff, which is great as well. I've just kind of used this forever. It's what I know. I do have the low end rolled off a fair amount. This thing adds a lot of low end, like a dB and a half. I usually roll that off. Back EQ, this is something I reach for occasionally. I like to cut at 18, and then I'm adding a little bit of low end sub in there as well. The cut at 18 is usually pretty nice if I'm worried about headroom. Cutting at 18 just adds kind of like something about the resonant bump, or like filtering some of that real low sub off, makes it feel like it has more sub. So let's see if we could hear that potentially. So again, fairly subtle, but you know, we're doing small moves here that add up to something large. I love this EQ. Looks like I'm rolling some top off, adding a little bit of bottom. Again, the track itself felt thin coming to me, so a lot of what I'm doing is trying to get a little bit of this stuff back. Just a little bit of the bottom. Oxford Inflator, I use this sometimes on Mixbus. I know Cam loves it. It's kind of like a secret to the loudness thing of a lot of these records that are very pressed against the glass. It's kind of the only way that I've found to rebuild some of that energy. It reduces contrast a fair amount over the song as a whole, but what it brings in, that sort of really in your face, pressed against the glass thing, I think is a nice give and take. And then I love this K clip. I'll be usually... Yeah, you could hear that's just catching tiny little peaks, tiny little things. I don't want this to do any heavy lifting as much as I want it to just set me up for my limiter to have to do even less work, which you'll see. You know, we're moving a bit here. They did release this as the mastered version. Typically, when I send stuff away that is gonna get mastered, I will take my Pro L and my K clip off and give the full like spectrum of the transient to the mastering engineer to deal with. But this is my way of going about it. It gets it loud. I really like Pro L2 as well, because I could do this, where I can hear what's happening. And then I can kind of dial and listen to the different styles or the attack and release, and see how that's kind of affecting the song as a whole. So yeah, that's Knox Sneakers. This is my mix of it. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, thoughts, always happy to answer. Until next time.